The snow had fallen heavier than usual that winter, blanketing the mountains in a silence so deep it felt like time had stopped. In a small wooden cabin, perched on the edge of a cliff, an old man sat at a desk, his hands trembling as he held a pen. His name was Rahim, a father who had spent most of his life in these mountains, far from the noise of the world. On the desk before him lay a single piece of paper, the last letter he would ever write to his only son. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, but Rahim barely noticed. His mind was far away, wandering through years of memories. The first time he held his son, the laughter they shared, the arguments that grew between them, and the long silence that had stretched for far too many years. Regret was heavy on his heart, but love was heavier still. He dipped the pen into the inkwell, the black liquid trembling as much as his hands. "My dear Amir," he began, "if you are reading this, then my voice can no longer reach you. I am writing from the mountains, the place that has been my home and my prison. I want to tell you the things I could never say in person." Rahim paused, his breath catching as he listened to the creak of the cabin walls in the cold. He thought about the fights that had driven Amir away, about the stubborn pride that had kept him from calling, from apologizing. "I was a hard man," he wrote, "too hard to see that love is not in the words we say, but in the moments we give. I should have given you more of my moments." The lantern flickered, casting long shadows on the rough wooden walls. Rahim glanced out the window. Beyond the glass, the mountains stood tall and silent, ancient witnesses to a lifetime of choices. Somewhere out there, his son was living a life Rahim knew nothing about. He continued writing, the words flowing faster now. "These mountains taught me something, Amir. They taught me that everything changes. The snow melts, the rivers swell, the storms pass. But what remains is what we plant in the hearts of others. I hope, despite my failures, I planted love in yours." His hand ached, but he kept going. The letter was not finished. This was not just a farewell. It was a bridge he was building across years of distance. Before I share what Rahim wrote next and the truth he had been holding inside for decades, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you never miss powerful stories like this. Stories that remind us of the fragile beauty of love, forgiveness, and the human heart. Rahim's pen scratched against the paper as if time itself were chasing him. The cold in the cabin deepened, but his thoughts were burning. "There is something I have never told you," he wrote, his eyes fixed on the wavering flame of the lantern. "The day you left home, I watched you from the window until you disappeared down the trail. I wanted to run after you, but my pride chained me to the floor. That night, I sat alone and realized the world without your voice is a world without light." He stopped for a moment, his breath visible in the freezing air. The wind outside roared against the walls, almost as if the mountains themselves were urging him to finish. Rahim leaned closer to the paper. "I built these walls to protect myself, Amir. But I see now they were also walls that kept you out. I should have torn them down long ago. I should have told you that no matter where you went, no matter what you did, you would always be my son, my greatest gift." A log cracked in the fireplace, sending sparks into the air. Rahim's eyes softened as memories returned. Teaching Amir to fish in the icy river, watching him climb trees with fearless laughter, sitting together in silence on the porch as the sun dipped behind the peaks. Those moments had been small, but they were the ones that mattered. He dipped the pen again, his hand stiff from the cold. If I could give you one lesson from this life, he continued, it would be this. Never wait to speak your heart. Pride will convince you there is more time. But time is the one thing we never own. Say the words while you can. Hold the hands you love while they are still warm. The cabin seemed quieter now, the storm easing outside. Rahim looked at the letter, his heart aching at the thought that these words might reach his son too late. Still, he wrote, because some truths are worth sending, even if the wind must carry them. He folded the paper halfway, but something in him resisted. This could not be the end. There was still one story, one secret he needed to tell Amir, a truth buried deep in the mountains and in his own soul. Rahim set the pen down for a moment and stared at the fire, the flames reflecting in his tired eyes. The secret had lived with him for decades, tucked away like a wound he could not touch. Now, in the stillness of the mountains, he felt the weight of it pressing against his chest. He reached for the pen again. Amir, he wrote slowly, there is something I never had the courage to tell you. Years ago, when you were just a boy, I made a mistake that changed both our lives. You remember the winter when our crops failed and the snow fell for months? I left for the lower valleys to find work. What I didn't tell you is that I was offered a chance to leave these mountains forever, to take you and your mother somewhere warm, somewhere safe. But I refused. His eyes burned, but he forced the words onto the page. I told myself it was because these mountains were our home. That the truth was, I was afraid of failing in a new world, afraid of being less than the man I pretended to be. And because of that fear, you grew up in hardship when you could have had more. The wind outside rose again, as if echoing the storm that had once raged in his heart. Rahim continued, his pen trembling. I cannot undo the past, my son, but I can tell you this. The world is wide and fear is a thief. Do not let it rob you as it robbed me. Go where your heart calls you, take risks, fail bravely, and know that I will be proud of you, not for your victories, but for your courage to try. Rahim paused, listening to the creak of the old wooden beams. He imagined Amir as a man now, perhaps with a family of his own, perhaps alone, perhaps still carrying the same stubbornness they both shared. He wished he could see his face, to know if he would understand. The snow outside had stopped falling. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light into the cabin. Rahim set the pen down again, breathing slowly. The letter was almost finished, but not yet. There was one last thing to say, something he had never been able to speak aloud in all the years they had shared the same roof. He pulled the paper closer and prepared to write the final words that mattered most. Rahim gripped the pen as though it were the last thread tying him to his son. The ink bled onto the paper in shaky strokes as he wrote, Amir, I love you. He paused, letting the words sink in, even though Amir would only read them on paper. I should have said it every day. I should have let you hear it in my voice, not just see it in my actions. If these are the last words you ever get from me, let them be this. You were never a disappointment. You were the best part of my life. His chest tightened, but there was peace in it. The fire had burned low, the cabin glowing faintly under the moonlight. He folded the letter carefully, sealing it inside an envelope marked only with his son's name. Rahim leaned back in his chair, listening to the quiet hum of the mountains at night. He felt the cold creeping into the room, but it no longer bothered him. The letter would be found by a passing traveler, by a villager who came to check on him, or maybe even by Amir himself if fate was kind. He closed his eyes, imagining his son standing at the edge of the cliff where the cabin looked out over the valley. He pictured Amir reading the letter, the mountains behind him, the wind carrying the words into his heart. And in that image, Rahim was no longer cold. He was home. Somewhere far away, a new dawn was rising. Perhaps the same dawn that would reach Amir when the letter finally found him. To you listening to the story, remember, life does not promise us tomorrow. If you love someone, tell them today. If you have forgiveness to give it now. Pride and fear may build walls, but only love can tear them down. If this story touched your hearts, subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily videos filled with stories that inspire courage, kindness, and connection. And carry this truth with you. It's never too late to send your heart where your voice cannot reach.